So about 2 months ago, I got the Pixel XL phone by Google and reviewed it. And if you watched that review, you know that while I certainly had a lot of good things to say about it, I definitely was very critical about the price and its lack of what I'd consider to be very important features. And now that I've been using it for a couple months, I felt that I should share some additional thoughts having used the phone for so much longer. So this won't be a full review, but rather more of an addendum if there's anything I still think is good or bad about it, or if I change my mind. And of course, we can talk about whether I still think it's not really worth it, as I mentioned before. One thing I thought was important to mention is having to do with the Google Assistant. In my original review, I kind of wrote it off as like a gimmick and not really useful at all, but surprisingly, over the past month, I've actually been using it somewhat often. I especially like using it for reminders since I can just say, remind me to do this at this time, and it's just way easier than having to go into the Keep app or the Inbox app and type everything in. Also, I think that the artificial intelligence behind the Google Assistant is more impressive than I originally realized. For example, if I want to go to Home Depot or something, I can say it in a number of ways and it will know what I'm talking about. I could say, let's go to Home Depot, or take me to Home Depot, or drive to Home Depot, or even walk to Home Depot, and they all work as you'd expect. It's one of those things where it works so well that you kind of take it for granted. So Google Assistant, I would say, is actually one of the better features of the phone at this point, and is more useful than it might seem initially. Another thing I know people will be wondering about is if this phone can keep up its speed over time. Obviously, when it's brand new, it's going to be really fast, but what about 2 months later? Well, I actually have not noticed any reduction in speed at all. It basically never stutters, it's still really snappy, and that's even after installing more apps over time. Again, I think that's probably due to the well-optimized hardware, Google making everything themselves from beginning to finish, and there's also no bloatware, but whatever the reason, it does work great still. Also, another one of the things from the original review that I said I loved was the battery life. And that hasn't changed either. In fact, now the battery seems to last even longer because I'm not constantly using the phone all day like I did when I first got it to try everything out. It easily lasts all day. And of course, the fast charging makes it so I basically never have to worry about the battery life on this phone at all. And most of the time, I don't even bother plugging it in at night because I know that with a decent charge, it's gonna not run out. One thing I still do hate is that they didn't include any wireless charging, QI charging. I don't know why they didn't do that, because it was so easy to just plop down my other phone on the nightstand on the wireless charging dock at night without having to fumble for cables. So at least with the good battery, I can just set it down without having to plug it in at all and it'll last all night. Still, wireless charging would have been nice. Next, I want to talk about the virtual reality features, which I wasn't really able to do before because I didn't have the Daydream headset for it. Now, I'm gonna say that I really was not impressed by the mobile VR experience on this phone. I'm not saying that the other options like the Gear VR are better, I'm just saying that I didn't like it. And that is for one specific reason, which is that VR on this phone is only 60 Hertz. For VR, that is not good enough. For a lot of people, especially those who aren't used to VR, it's probably going to cause motion sickness, especially if you use it for a while. And it's gonna at least be uncomfortable. And I mean, listen, the VR graphics are nice, and if you've never used VR before, you're gonna think it's cool, but this is not what VR is meant to be. It's really not. I have a Vive and an Oculus Rift, and I love them. They've never made me feel sick, but those are both 90 Hertz. At 60 Hertz, that's just too low. Even with low persistence, every once in a while, and by that I mean like maybe once a minute, there's just a little bit of judder or lag, and I'd get this very brief moment of dizziness and motion sickness that just doesn't happen at higher refresh rates, and I'm pretty used to VR. And when you try to use the VR through this for more than just a few minutes, it just gets worse. So basically, don't get this just intending to use it for any real VR because I don't think it's good enough. You're not gonna like it compared to any of the other real VR systems like the Oculus or Vive. Next, I thought I'd mention cell reception and call quality. A couple people asked about this, and I know I didn't really talk about it before. Now, I think that the voice audio quality is fine. I mean, as far as phones go, there's not really anything to complain about. It's not like phone lines have ever had good quality anyway. Though I do really miss the extra volume feature that my Galaxy S7 had. That was kind of nice. You don't have that here for when the volume is low, but everything's pretty much good in terms of quality for this. As for cell reception, it's kind of hard to tell because I've never really had too many cell reception issues before on other phones, but I do think it might be a little bit better on the Pixel XL. I don't think I've ever seen it have no reception where it should have, and I guess that's to be expected considering it's a bigger phone, meaning bigger antennas, and they put that huge window on the back, which is supposedly for better signal. I guess it works. So the cell reception and call quality, they're fine. Now, the final thing people asked about is the lens flare issue with the camera. Before I heard people saying that this was an actual problem, I had noticed it a couple times, but being someone who's familiar with cameras for a while, I didn't think anything of it because I know that you can get that with literally any lens. It happens just because of physics, and I just adjusted the picture or blocked out some light to get rid of it when it happened. I didn't go on Google and search why is this happening because I knew. I do believe Google released a software patch to try and remove the flare digitally, though it's not going to be magic. If there's lens flare information coming onto the sensor and it's blocking out real image information, you can't just make it go away. And I honestly don't think the lens flare though is a real problem anyway. If you see it on the screen when you're trying to take a picture, just use your hand to block the light and you'll be fine. It's like that for any lens. So I guess in conclusion, having used this phone a couple months later, how do I feel about whether or not it's worth it or not at this point? Last time I said that it was way overpriced and basically not worth it. But now that I've seen how it holds up in terms of performance and reliability, I definitely feel a little bit better about it. I do still think it's overpriced, and I do think they skimped on some major features, which is disappointing. But the good things about it can make it worth it, I think, if you have no problem spending that much money on it. So if you're looking at this phone and thinking, well, I don't really want to spend that much money on a phone, but let me stop you right there. If money is a major factor in your phone choice, don't get this phone. I'll stand by my opinion that they're overcharging for it. However, if money is not really a factor for you when you're buying a phone and you just want the fastest, most reliable phone and don't care about any missing features that I talked about, this is probably the best choice. I guess what I'm saying is this phone is not necessary for most people. You don't have to spend that much money to get a good phone. You can, and with this you'll definitely get a good phone, no doubt. But be aware that just because it's the most expensive phone doesn't mean it's the best for you. You gotta look at the actual other features it has, and maybe you do want something with wireless charging, for example, or that's waterproof. You just have to know that for yourself. So I think that's everything else I wanted to add. Hopefully that clarifies some things if you watched the previous review, and I hope you guys did find this helpful as well, especially if you had some questions from the other one. By the way, did you guys see how many people on the other video were complaining about how I called the right speaker fake and that I'm an idiot because it's actually a microphone? Look, that wasn't my point, which was that it looks like there's two speakers, but really there's only one. You wouldn't believe the flack I got for that one. I just had to address it. So to you experts in the comments section, go make your own video. God forbid I misspeak once in a 20-minute video. Literally no one gives a shit, just stop. Anyway, if you guys did like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment with your thoughts. I'd like to hear what you think. And if you want to keep watching, I'll put some over here, some more videos, and you can click on these even if you're on a phone. If you want to subscribe, I'm making new videos 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, so it should be worth it. And also consider clicking the bell next to the subscribe button for notification because the YouTube algorithm sucks and won't show you my videos otherwise. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.